Hello, everyone. I see some participants coming in and we're recording. So we'll just give a couple of moments for everyone to settle in. As we're doing that, Latanya, do you want to introduce yourself? Maybe we'll go Latanya, Julie, and then we'll introduce Amir and we can get started with the webinar.
Hi, everyone. My name is Latanya Moore, and I am the Community Engagement Coordinator at OutSchool. I love planning events for all of you, parents and teachers. I know we have mostly teachers here today, but I know a lot of you are also parents.
Great. Thanks so much for being here, Latanya. And I'm Julie, our community lead for parent and teacher communities. So really excited to be back on another town hall with Latanya and with Amir, CEO and co-founder of OutSchool. So we had a lot of questions about what Series C means, what does this mean for OutSchool, and some other specific questions about OutSchool's future. So Amir is going to run through a lot of that stuff and more. We'll get started with kind of some of that overall knowledge, and then we'll dive into a couple of specific questions that we received ahead of time, and we'll have our raffle at the very end. So with all that said, I'll pass it over to Amir to get us started and let us know, bring us in on all this knowledge and this celebration of Series C.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Julie. I'm really delighted to be here speaking to you all. I'm going to share a slide deck. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second to click the right button. Could I get some thumbs up to see if you could see that okay? Great. Fantastic. Well, I'm so delighted to speak to you all. I'm one of the co-founders of OutSchool and the CEO. Great to be talking to you if you have spoken to me before or attended one of these town halls before. A special welcome to any new members of our community who maybe I haven't had a chance to talk to before. I'm delighted to connect with all of you again. And what I'm going to be talking about is some of the news that we shared in the past week. It's been a very big week. We announced new funding for OutSchool, and we also announced a fund for educators where we're setting aside some stock in the company. So I wanted to take this opportunity to share some more context about that news and also to take some of your questions about that or any other questions that might be on your mind about OutSchool. So diving into the agenda, as I said, I'll talk about some of those updates. Then we'll do a Q&A and I'll hand back to Julie to talk about raffle prizes. But let's dive in. The announcement that we made in the past week is that we have raised a new round of funding, which adds $75 million of additional investment in the company. And that values the company at $1.3 billion. Those are large numbers. It's an incredible testament to the value that this community provides to families, especially over the last year. And one piece of terminology you might hear is this term unicorn. Unicorn is a word to talk about companies that are valued at greater than $1 billion. And it's used because unicorns are special and rare, and it's rare that companies achieve that level of growth. And this really represents a new stage for our company and a new opportunity for us to grow and invest for the future and invest in supporting you. I'll go into that a little bit more because I'm using some terminology here that's common in startup and tech circles, and I want to make sure that I explain it. Series C, C is the third letter in the alphabet. So there were series before, and it's a terminology that's used to describe what's called a round of funding. And typically startups, as they grow, raise several rounds of funding that depict different stages of the company. And so this slide is showing, a little bit about what each stage of company growth typically means. So you start off at seed stage, where it's really just an idea and a few people working on it. And we were at this stage early as 3 years ago. Some of you on here may remember that, when we were a very small team of 10 working with you all and had, I think, hundreds of teachers in our community. I was really kind of testing the waters. And then, as demand grows and as you figure out, what customers want and how to scale the company and grow revenue, at that point, you're able to unlock new stages of company growth and add new investments. So we raised Series A in 2018 and then a Series B just last summer. And now at Series C stage, we have over 100 employees and over 10,000 teachers in our community, which is just incredible and has grown so much over the past year. But the path that we're on is to potentially raise future rounds as we grow, but head towards what's called a liquidity event, which is a stepping stone in a company's life where the stock actually becomes tradable and is traded on the stock exchange. And an initial public offering is one type of liquidity event, and the one we're aiming for in our company's future. And at that point, we hope to have tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of teachers in our community, and to be serving millions and millions of learners across the world. So, where are we now and how do we get here? The numbers are incredible. Over the past year, we've grown our community from 1,000 educators to 10,000 educators and have now served 900,000 learners across 174 countries. And teacher payouts have reached almost $100 million. And, when I look at that number, I just think, wow, that's very hard to wrap your head around in terms of the size of that number. But aside from the dollars, I'm also amazed and proud for you on what that represents, because every dollar represents a family who has come to us and come to you, to your classes in need, and a child that has attended one of those classes and had an incredible experience with your classes. And your work is critical to serve families, not just under the current circumstances with COVID, but also going into the future in order to supplement school, fill in the gaps, inspire kids to love learning in a way with resources that they might not have access to locally. So I'm so grateful for your work over the past year and going forward. And, we got here to this level of success as a community by staying focused on learners and their needs and increasing their love of learning, because that is what keeps families and kids coming back to your classes. And that is what causes them to talk about art school and talk about your classes and refer their friends. So the other piece of news, in addition to the funding that we shared this week, is that we are setting aside 2% of the stock in the company for the benefit of educators. And, I view Outschool the company, our community of parents and teachers, as being in partnership with each other in order to deliver incredible experiences for learners. And your work is a critical part of that partnership. There are no great classes without great teachers. And so as part of this funding round, I wanted to strengthen and recognize that partnership by sharing Outschool's financial success with teachers above and beyond, the payouts that you receive for your classes. And so we insisted with investors that we set aside 2% of the stock in the company as this fund. We're still a private company. That stock can't be sold right now, but when we achieve a liquidity event, such as an initial public offering, and our stock is available to sell, this stock will become a fund that we can use to distribute to teachers. Now, we're still working on the details of how we'll manage those funds, and we'll share those later this year. It's also worth pointing out that this is an unusual program. It's pretty unprecedented for a company to set aside an amount of stock like this for the community, but I think that reflects the unique value that teachers have in our society. And I want our teaching community to not only be thinking about growing your business and increasing your payouts and delivering a great experience for learners, but also to help each other and contribute to each other's success, because ultimately that's what drives up the value of our stock and the overall value in the network. And this fund is a way for you all to share in that growth. Aside from the news that we shared this week, I also wanted to highlight some other changes and recent wins, which I hope have been noticed and that you've enjoyed, but some might have been more obvious than others. So I wanted to recap some of the changes we've made recently in support of teachers. And some things I'm very excited about are better discovery, so that families and learners can find your classes. Our gift cards program that we relaunched in the fall, better referral credits, and new marketing programs and channels. And all of those help in driving demand for your classes so that you can make sure they're full to a good level and you're achieving the business success that you want. And then we've also focused on helping you improve the experience of your classes and making them easier to manage with improvements to the classroom, scheduling functionality, and expanded professional development opportunities. And we've also been growing our team so that we are able to provide you with continuously better service. So those are some of the recent wins. The reason we raise external funding is because we want to invest ahead of our revenue so we can keep improving our product and services for you. And so I'm very focused now on our future investments that we can make in improving educator tooling, improving our marketing and partnerships to keep bringing new learners into your classes, expanding into international markets so we can bring even more learners into our community, and then also growing our team so that we can keep on providing you a higher and higher level of service. So, what do these announcements, what do these changes mean for you? Well, as I said, we're very focused on providing a better service, in investing in that and using the new investment. And, my ask of you is to stay the course, grow your business with us through all the challenges and changes of COVID, of coming out of COVID and returning to, a more normal state of affairs. And keep working with us to up-level the classes that you offer and helping us up-level our service by giving us feedback and helping us grow our community together so that we can serve kids better. So those are the slides I prepared. I wanted to finish on with some amazing quotes. And we receive these every day, and I hope you see many coming in through the feedback from your classes and feedback in reviews. We've made such a difference together during the past very difficult year. And I hope that you're really proud of yourselves and your work and the contribution you've made. And it's lovely to see quotes like this from our community recognizing that contribution. So I'll now stop sharing my screen and move to the next part of the agenda, which is I'd like to take some questions. I think we received some questions in advance, and I think there'll also be questions that have come in live. So I'll hand it over to Julie to help us navigate those questions.
Great, thank you so much, Amir, and thanks everyone for being here. I hope that answered some of the questions that we received, because we definitely got some about what OutSchool is going to do with this, what this means for teachers, and everything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our other list of questions that we had received ahead of time, so we can get a few of those in, and then we'll take a chance to look at some of those live questions as well. So this is actually, I have one specific question I pulled out, but we've gotten a lot of questions about marketing. So this one reads, besides emailing parents and advertising our classes on Facebook, how else will OutSchool be marketing our classes to increase learners? Could you speak to that a little bit, Amir?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we think about a lot, because we're constantly trying to grow our community of learners who we can serve and bring them to your classes. One thing it's worth noting is that the majority of enrollments on OutSchool come from parents coming back to our site and browsing on our search page and through our discovery tools on the site. So often parents are remembering OutSchool, hearing about OutSchool offline, navigating to the site, and looking for your classes. And that's why it's so important to, work on the class description and keeping that up to date. And that's why it's so important for us to keep investing in our search tools and our discovery tools. So that's a major area of investments. And those tools exist today, but they can be so much better, and we see so much opportunity to improve them. So part of this, when I think about bringing new learners and marketing your classes, isn't just new initiatives, it's up-leveling some things that already exist. Then, the question also alluded to email and Facebook, which are very, very important for us to get the word out. And again, we're focused on up-leveling those channels as well as our referral program. In addition to that, we are focused on growing internationally, because one of the great things about live online classes is that we can have learners join from all over the world. And in fact, families tell us that's one of the benefits of Outschool, that their learners can be in class together with others. So that's a way in which we're investing to grow our community. And another way is our new initiatives selling into schools and businesses. So we have new initiatives where employers are starting to pay for Outschool classes as a benefit for their employees. And schools have become interested in partnering with Outschool to give their communities access to our classes as enrichment programs. So I guess I've said a lot, and the answer is a lot. We're very, very focused on growing our community, and in some ways up-leveling our existing approaches and then expanding to new approaches.
Great. Thanks so much for answering that, Amir. I think, yeah, we are totally invested to bringing Outschool to a lot more people. And I think we're just like, this past year has been huge, but we're still barely scratching the surface of offering Outschool to families who would be really interested in it. So I'm really optimistic for the future. And kind of on that note, with learners going back to school, things reopening, there's some questions coming up about Outschool's plans or advice for keeping up the volume of classes. And then there's also a couple of questions about where do you see distance learning going in the future, and what role would Outschool play in that? So I thought those two questions kind of went together. So I'd love to hear you speak about that a little bit.
Yeah, those questions go together great. And I'll start by talking at a high level, and then talk about what I'm expecting in the next few months and for the rest of this year. And building off what you said, Julie, yes, we've experienced this incredible growth, but it really is just the start, and you can see that in the numbers. We've served 900,000 learners so far, which is an incredibly large number. But there are 50 million school-aged kids in the US and 1.3 billion worldwide. And we think that that we have the opportunity to serve hundreds of millions of learners ultimately. And it is our goal with programs like international growth and all the other work that we're doing in order to reach those large numbers of learners and bring them into your classes. With COVID, we've experienced a really unique situation and a unique type of growth where we've had to respond very quickly to changes. And as we come out of COVID, and thankfully, vaccines are getting distributed and schools are starting to reopen, we can expect more change. So I think my first piece of advice in terms of thinking about how to adjust your classes and keep them full through these changes is we have to all be responsive. We have to all be talking to our learners and the families who keep coming back to our classes and asking them what they need, and being listen and being very diligent about changing up the mix of classes as the seasons change and as parents' requirements change. I think that as vaccines are distributed and as schools reopen, all of us are going to want to get outside and meet up in person. And so I do think there's going to be a period of time where growth isn't going to be as fast, and it might be a little bit more challenging to fill classes. But I also expect that very quickly, all the advantages that families have found from online learning, the fact that they can get access to amazing teachers and content that they wouldn't be able to access locally, the fact that their kids actually enjoy these classes and are relatively inexpensive compared with in-person activities, all of those will come back. And I expect a future of education that's hybrid, where people are going to be using a combination of in-person resources and online resources for their kids' education going forward. And that's that was always the bet that Outschool was making pre-pandemic, and that is the bet that investors are making in investing in us, and that is what I expect. I think a couple of tactical pieces of advice. We're seeing incredible growth in ongoing classes, and so we're seeing growth in that class type even with schools reopening in parts of the country. And I think that's because parents see a lot of value in regularly filling, say, an after-school slot or a time of day where their kids are not otherwise occupied and they want to keep them in touch with learning in a social way. So I encourage you to look at that format if you haven't already. And in addition, summer is a different time of year where schools aren't in session. And while this year, thankfully, there will hopefully be in-person activities and camps, which will be available to kids again, there's a lot of summer to fill, and OutSchool will have a role in that. So I know that the community team and our teacher team have shared some advice on what kind of classes you might want to schedule over the summer. So I've covered a lot there, but that's kind of how I think about it at a high level in terms of where we're going and what our opportunity is, and some tactical advice for the short term.
Thanks so much, Amir. Yeah, I really appreciate that you shared some advice as well, because we had some questions paired with similar questions about what educators can do. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then another question we had, and this came out like in a couple of forms, so I'm not going to read a specific one verbatim, but we had a few educators asking about the 70-30 revenue share that's currently in place and if the funding affects that at all.
So the 70-30 revenue share has been in place for a long time, and I'm not expecting to change that. The reason we raise funding is, we spend more than the 30% currently in order to market your classes and develop the platform and provide the services that we do. And that's intentional. We intentionally operate at a somewhat of a loss in order so that we can invest in the future. But it's very, very important that as a company, we have a solid business model and solid unit economics, and that we can be sustainable. So we calibrate the amount we raise externally from investors and the amount we take as our cut in order to balance those considerations, being sustainable while also being able to invest in the future. So there's no change expected there in the near term, and we know that changes to pricing affect everyone and are a big deal. So we would engage with you as a community if there was ever going to be any changes on that.
Great, thanks, Amir. Yeah, definitely wanted to ask for that because I know a few people had asked, so thank you for answering. And switching to something a little more on the fun side, someone was asking if we considered hosting an annual in-person conference for educators on OutSchool. What do you think about that?
I love that idea. It will be wonderful to get to connect in person with so many of you. We've been restricted on being able to do anything like that through COVID, but as things become safer, I hope that we can head in that direction in the future. I think because our educators are so spread out, and that's great. I think we'd start with virtual events, though. We want to make sure that we can connect to as many people as possible, and virtual events have the advantage that if for whatever reason you don't want to travel or can't make an in-person event, then we can reach many more of you. So I think we'll start there. But yes, in the future, I do hope that we can have in-person events with our community.
Great, thanks for that, Amir. And another one we had was, okay, well, we did get how did OutSchool come to life, but I think that might take more than just a few minutes to talk about. And we had also some questions about what we're going to build and when. We got a couple of questions about a mobile app, some things like that. Could you speak a little bit to some of those cool things that people have really been waiting for?
We have so much in the works, but I don't want to make any specific commitments on timing because, when we launch new features, we follow a very iterative approach where we try and launch them in a small way and then learn And that means that we want to hold back committing fully to when things are available. But what I can tell you is that we are working on some pretty exciting improvements in search and discovery. And we do have mobile apps on our minds as part of thinking about this year's product plan. So no specific commitments on those fronts yet, because we're still working on scoping out what it would entail, what the value would be, and prioritizing those against other requirements. I will say we have a whole product team entirely focused on educator tools now, and serving you. So part of growing our team of on the product side and on the engineering side is so that we can deliver more features and changes to you faster. But I'll save the real fun details of what's coming up for when we're ready to launch, and you'll hopefully see some very fun stuff soon.
Great, thank you for that. And with just a few minutes left, I think we can get through the raffle like pretty quick, but I did want to ask a couple more questions. I don't want to press you too much on specifics, but a lot of people are really curious about international expansion, and what does that mean in terms of like, will there be international tech support? Will Outschool be available in other languages? What countries are we going into? Kind of what can you say about that to give us a little more clarity about where we're going internationally?
Yeah, I'll say that, well, first I'll talk about it in the long run and also in the short term. In the long run, we want to create a global education community. So with hundreds of millions of learners. And, what that means is I want us to be in all countries and in all languages. There's a lot of work to do to get there, because currently we only support one language. In our plan for this year, we want to grow our international presence, particularly in English-speaking countries around the world. But then we're also actively looking at supporting another language and seeing if we can pull that forward given this new investment. So I don't have anything concrete to share there. I will say, we are looking at supporting Spanish. There are already some classes taught in Spanish on our platform, and we already have customers domestically in the US and in Central and Latin America who I think would benefit from that. There are very large numbers of people in India and in China that are looking for live online education. And so, I think it'll take us a while to figure out the exact approach in which countries to tackle first, but it's top of mind for us to not only expand in English-speaking countries, but also to add languages, and hopefully add a language this year. When I think about adding support for another language, that's everything. That's being able to pay in a local currency. That's being able to, read the site in the local language. That's having teachers who are able to teach classes in a different language, and that's providing some kind of support. As with any new initiative, we can't provide it all at once. So to a certain extent, you won't get the Outschool experience as it is now in English in another language immediately. It'll be a somewhat limited experience that we then will hope to iterate and grow.
Great, thank you so much for all of that, Amir. So we just have about 1 minute left to get into our raffle. Thank you so much, Amir, for all of the info that you shared, for coming out for educators and bringing us all in on this work here. And I just want to say I saw some chatter in the chat about not getting this invite. I would encourage everyone to check teach.outschool.com, especially if you're not on Facebook, because we post about product updates. We posted about the Series C and the town hall there. And I can take your feedback back to the rest of the supply team, which is an entire team committed to making the educator experience really great and make sure that we can get our communication straightened out. So thank you so much for being candid about your feedback and what happened and if you heard about this or not. But with all that said, I'll go ahead and get into sharing my screen for the raffle. Can I get a drum roll? Okay, well, let me go back to my first raffle slide before we do all this drum roll nonsense. Let's get it started here. Can everyone see the raffle details? We are picking 10 winners Each winner will get $50 worth, typo, $50 worth of OutSchool merchandise from the online store. And one of 10 winners will get their own account manager until the end of this year. And we have randomly selected the people who filled out this form. So I basically just put everyone in a random number generator and picked you out of there. So now for real, the drum roll before we get to the winners. And we have Amity Shea, Courtney Lu, Kimberly, Renee, John Roach, Amy, Sean Troy, Mrs. Thorne, Adina, and Donnie. These are your names as they appear on OutSchool. So if anyone's interested in getting to know these folks, Amity Shea has been with us since 2018. Courtney just joined us this year. Lots of amazing, really cool classes that everyone is teaching. I wish I could spend more time giving you all the proper recognition you need, but then you'll get some recognition with those $50 gift certificates to the store as well. And for our one winner who we chose randomly out of these 10 for the account management, it's going to be Amity Shea. So we'll reach out to all the winners to get them their prizes. Congratulations to Amity Shea for being the big winner of the account management. And I'll be in touch with all of you a little bit later today. And we'll also share the recording of this on teach.outschool.com and via email later today. So that way everyone can catch up in case you're a little bit late to this one. All right, that's all for now. Let's go ahead and break here. Thank you everyone who was able to join live. If you're watching the recording, big thanks to you too. And big thank you to Amir for bringing us in with all this information.
Thanks all.
Okay, bye everyone.